interest in Mary Magdalene comes from my name, which is Mary Magdalene. And my work often goes about sacred images and sacred figures. And as a feminist artist, I like looking at empowered women in not only in our history but also in the mythology that informs religion. And Mary Magdalene is a particularly interesting figure.
It's rather fortuitous, or perhaps it's very well planned, to have an exhibition of celebration of women in the guise of the varying identities of Mary Magdalene that opens directly after Women's Day. I also think that it's the right time to proclaim her as a positive role model for contemporary women.
I moved to America in 1981, and a few months before I left, I had an exhibition here at what was then RAU. So when I returned 23 years later, I made overtures here to show again, and because I had a little bit of history of having shown here, I was accepted to exhibit. So this is actually my fourth exhibition at this university.
Majak Bredell has exhibited extensively at the University of Johannesburg Art Gallery. This is her fourth exhibition here, and certainly her largest exhibition addressing Mary Magdalene. She's always busy profiling women from the Bible or religious figures, but also the goddess from antiquity and the way that the woman was perceived from a very far away age up to the present.
Most of us would have heard of Mary Magdalene via the Bible. And, as most women in the Bible, her identity has been manipulated by the Church for didactic purposes in the service of patriarchal order and control. The Virgin Mary, for example, was constructed as a role model to reinforce female subordination in church dogma, a figure unified by the positive virtues of spirituality, service, and motherly love. Mary Magdalene, on the other hand, is a counterfoil for the Virgin Mary. It is impossible to pin her down as one persona or unify her attributes. Our knowledge of her is a construct of several different stories of diverse women that have been conflated into an enigma. She is often mistakenly identified as a prostitute, sometimes a weeping penitent, sometimes a devoted acolyte, sometimes a sinner. If you search for a coherent Magdalene in the pages of the Bible, you will be disappointed. She appears in so many guises that she has become the canvas onto which anyone can inscribe their ideas, ideals, and ideologies. And the Church has done just that by presenting her in a reductive manner as a cautionary tale for womankind, an alternative scapegoat for the follies perpetrated by Eve or Pandora.
She was not a prostitute. She was never named a prostitute in the Bible. She was not even named as the woman that anointed Jesus' feet. That was a sinner from the city. But in the 6th century, Pope Gregory decided that the woman that anointed Jesus' feet and Mary Magdalene, who had 7 devils expelled from her, was the same woman, and therefore the sin that she had committed must have been adultery or prostitution, so she became known as a prostitute.
Representations of her in visual history are also less coherent than that of the Virgin. She has taken on so many roles that one often requires knowledge of biblical stories to identify her in paintings. If you look at all the different ways that the Magdalene has been presented through art.
So in my work, I step away from the stereotype of the prostitute, and I turn her back into a goddess. I turn her into the beloved. I turn her into Jesus's partner, into his beloved. And I also revitalize her sexuality, that the sexuality that the church wanted to suppress over all the years actually never died, because in the character of the prostitute, she was necessarily sexual. So her imagery, her iconography actually kept sexuality alive over the many centuries.
In opposition to the sanitized Virgin Mary or the vague, unsubstantiated sinfulness of the biblical Magdalene, we see in the CODEX MAGDALENE exhibition a feminist reclaiming of ancient goddess energy, fecundity, freedom, joy and power. Bredell is not trying to discover a singular identity, nor is she in trying to impose a narrow ideology that precludes dialogue. Instead, she attempts to uncover each contradictory and composite facet of this enigmatic figure, displayed through gestures, inscriptions, and physical attributes. This exhibition is an opportunity for us to engage with them all and allow their diversity to coalesce and resonate with the complex nature that pertains to all life. The women depicted here should remind us that we too are not prescribed beings. Our identities are not predefined, but multiple and diverse, and the freedom we have today to choose who and what we will be should be embraced as we celebrate the presence of these evocative figures who fill the gallery today.
It's absolutely wonderful to see the way her work fits in with this gallery. This space has got a cathedral-like atmosphere. It's got the good acoustic, similar to that of a cathedral. It's a long, narrow space. And to see all these women in their different incarnations here presented in their religiousness, but also from a feminist viewpoint, is quite extraordinary. She has really done a lot of research on this topic of the female and her body and her place in society and various aspects of femininity or femaleness, and always does it with the most exquisite research and intelligence. So it's so wonderful to have her and to see the passion and the energy that she imbibes all her works with.
My inspiration actually comes from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and it comes from the archaic and religious imagery that are there. I'm really fascinated by sacred art, and I'm fascinated by the full frontal aspects of sacred art and by the symmetry that surrounds it, whether it's Buddhist art, whether it's ancient Greek art, whether it is ancient Anatolian artifacts, or whatever it is. There is just something so still and eternal in those images. So that is really my inspiration. And then, of course, I love the figure and I love to draw, and I think the human figure is just the most beautiful thing on the planet. And by that, I don't mean the beautified images, I mean real bodies.
Majak told me 2 days ago that she looked down the gallery, this side and that, and she said, "This is 20 years of my life." I think we can really put our hands together for this lady and the wonderful work she's done.
A big thanks to Annalie Dempsey for her unflagging energy and support, and for your terrific eagle eye. Thank you.
Through her drawing, there's a respect of the woman's body as well. It's not interpreted from a man's perspective, but from a woman's perspective.
This is an exquisite collection of artwork, and we have to congratulate the artist for presenting us with this wonderful exhibition.
What a beautiful exhibition. I love the work here today, and I really think that it is important for the history of Mary Magdalene, but also important to women today.
This is now the third time that I'm coming to see Majak. I saw her exhibition in Pretoria, and I also did the walkabout there. And every time it just deepens the questions, the richness, of femininity and for me personally as a woman.
My bestest beloved soulmate. We've been friends since 1974 and we've walked the walk of art together, and we've walked the walk of this journey for very, very many years and delving into the depths. And the work that presses my buttons the most, oddly enough, is the one that's got least of all to do with Mary Magdalene, although it's called Maria Magdalene, but it's a portrait of my beloved Majak Bredell, a heartfelt, wrenching portrait after she had a double mastectomy. Its title is Maria Magdalene, but I'm not fooled. Its real title should be Majak Bredell's self-portrait.
What I do want to stress is the manner in which her diverse characteristics reinforce a link with the complex, contradictory and multiple attributes of the ancient goddess myths from pre-Christian matriarchal religions. It can be identified in the inclusion and acceptance of binaries in Bredell's powerful female icons that surround us here. The yin and the yang, the good and the bad, the powerful, sexual, nurturing, fearsome, loving aspects of a holistic, all-embracing, multifaceted persona that is celebrated and beautifully presented in Majak Bredell's many faces of her Magdalenes.